Abigail Robertson joins us now from Capitol Hill. Abby, what are senators saying now that the FBI investigation is done?
Well, Republicans are saying that the FBI report shows that none of the allegations against Judge Kavanaugh are corroborated, so they're ready to vote. While Democrats say that the investigation didn't go far enough, so they still have a lot of questions and are accusing the Republicans of constraining the FBI in their investigation. Now, here's some video clips from what both sides are saying.
The main thing for me is that you need to go to the FBI and you need to ask them, did they feel like they were able to do their job without interference? And I think the answer is yes. They interviewed over 150 people have been interviewed throughout the course of Brett Kavanaugh's life. To those who suggest he had a problem like this from prior interviews, no evidence of that. That's all manufactured. The senators who requested the supplemental FBI background check got what they requested, and I am ready to vote.
We Democrats had many fears that this would be an all too limited process that would constrain the FBI from getting the facts. Having received a thorough briefing a few minutes ago, our fears have been realized.
Now, Republican senators just held a press conference where they told reporters that they did not tell the FBI whom to speak with or who not to speak with, that they let them decide and gave them free rein over who they wanted to talk to. Now, some Democrats have called for this report to be released publicly and have claimed that Republicans might be hiding something by not doing so, but Chairman Chuck Grassley also addressed this allegation and said that Republican senators don't actually have the power to release the report, but added that the White House might be able to.
Yeah, Abigail, of those Republican senators who are still kind of on the fence, Flake, Collins, and Murkowski, what are you hearing about them? How might they vote?
Well, so far, we know that at one point today, the three of them were actually in the room together reviewing the document, and that Susan Collins has said it appears to be a very thorough investigation, and Senator Flake said that there's no corroboration for Ford's claims in the FBI report. Now, Flake has gone back to the room more than once to take a look at this document, but we don't know for sure yet how any of them will vote, and we're also, we now know that Senator Heitkamp is a no, but we're still waiting to see how Senator Joe Manchin might vote.
Abigail Robertson reporting live on Capitol Hill. Thank you so much, Abby.
Thank you.
And we are joined now by GOP National Spokesperson Kayleigh McEnany and CBN News political analyst David Brody. Both of you, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for having us.
Kayleigh, David, this first question is for both of you. Who are the winners and the losers in all of this now that the FBI investigation is completed? And why don't we do ladies first?
Sure. I don't think there are any winners. This was a very serious, horrific allegation that was charged, and we saw a man whose reputation was smeared before the entirety of the nation. I don't think there are any winners. You know, if there is a winner, perhaps it's the fact that finally Judge Kavanaugh can have his name cleared and can have some sort of personal peace, if that's ever possible and achievable in his life again, after having to explain this to his daughters, to the nation, and Dr. Ford as well, what she went through. That there are no winners here, but I'm excited to see Judge Kavanaugh hopefully become Justice Kavanaugh and at least have that moment of peace.
I agree with Kayleigh on the winners. I can tell you who's one of the losers here, Dianne Feinstein. I mean, she looks really, really bad here. The fact that she held this, and I know she's talking about noble intentions as to why she held it, but look, she held it. And it really looks bad in the Democrats' dirty tactics playbook. And it clearly has motivated GOP enthusiasm. I mean, we're going to see that in the polls. We started to see that already in the polls. And so, look, I mean, you know, I think there's no doubt she's the loser here. I don't call her a loser, but she's a loser in the process. And, you know, maybe the Republicans, I don't know, Congressman, can't you dedicate a post office? They should dedicate a post office to Dianne Feinstein, and the mail can be delivered 2 months late. I mean, it could be something like that.
David, you alluded to it. Kayleigh, there is new polling that shows a real enthusiasm among GOP voters because of Brett Kavanaugh. What do you make of it?
There's no doubt, you know, if there's anything that excites Republican voters, it's the Supreme Court. We saw it in 2016. 1 in 5 voters voted based on the Supreme Court, and of those, 56% voted for President Trump. So it is a motivating issue for our voters. But what's interesting here in particular, we're seeing the 2016 effect play again. A Pew poll showed a a few months ago, 1 month ago, I should say, a 12-point gap, Democrats ahead of Republicans. That has narrowed to just 2 in the wake of the post-Kavanaugh revelations and confirmation process.
You know, if Kavanaugh is confirmed, Kaylee, is there concern that Republicans might shrink back a little bit, might relax and not turn out at the polls in November?
I don't think so. And the reason I say that is one of the problems we were seeing in our polling is that our voters were not seeing the stakes of the election as clearly as they saw it in 2016. After 8 years of Obama, they knew the stakes of a liberal presidency, but they had kind of forgotten and sunk into a posture of complacency. And I think that this has woken up our base in a very powerful way that they will not forget. They see that the new standard trying to be put forward is guilty until proven innocent. It's something that I think will stay with them to November.
David, let's talk a little bit about media coverage. I'm surprised you didn't list them in the losers of all of this this playing out, but
There's still time.
There's still time. Clearly, Kavanaugh hasn't gotten a fair shake per his supporters by Democrats, but what's the role that the media played in all of this?
Well, it's been pretty pathetic. I mean, quite frankly. I mean, this whole this white male outrage that they're now on, and you know, it's funny because the Democrats have talking points, and all of a sudden, oh, look at that! It's in the New York Times, it's in the Washington Post. It's like a big, you know, cauldron of liberalism, all kind of wrapped into one. It's fascinating to see. It's like we always hear about the Gang of 500, and we hear about the latte sipping crowd in the Washington D.C. New York Acela corridor. It's all on display here. I mean, it's like they get together and get their talking points together, and they're ready for the day. So I think it's been extremely frustrating, obviously, if you're a conservative, for sure. But I also think there's a disconnect. You know, this New York Times, above the fold crowd, the Washington Post, you know, that the liberal intelligentsia of the world, they all think they're right, and they can't believe that Donald Trump, you know, can get elected, and the deplorables, you know, what are they talking about? And then the deplorables are kind of up here with Donald Trump. They understand exactly what he's saying. They understand exactly what he means, even though he might not say it as eloquently as he might, as other presidents may. And so the media never gets it. There's a total disconnect, and they've been trying to figure it out time and time again. I'll just say one last thing, is that the more the media gangs up on Donald Trump, the worse it gets for them and the better it gets for Donald Trump.
Yeah, the more his support grows.
For sure.
Kaylee, do you think Democrats here have overplayed their hand?
Oh, there's no denying it. You know, when you talked about Dianne Feinstein being the person who lost in this process, you're exactly right. And I like to compare how the two parties handled these things. The Republican Party, I'm very proud of our party. We allowed Dr. Ford to have her day to testify. We had the FBI investigation, let that play out, stalled the entire process for 2 weeks. And Dianne Feinstein sat on this allegation for 2 months, conveniently leaking it out just days before the vote. And not only that, you know, coming up with excuse after excuse. There are not enough documents, the Mueller probe now, and then finally using sexual assault as a pawn, essentially, in this political game. There's no doubt that Democrats lost. It's a serious matter, one that's plagued many women in this country, and it should not be politicized or used for political purposes.
Well, and just real quick to piggyback on that, the Democrats miscalculated here. They thought that in the Me Too movement, plus with the Republicans' traditional history of caving under pressure, that they would wilt. They didn't this time. Why? Look, I'm not going to say it's about Donald Trump, but in the Donald Trump era, he has emboldened a lot of folks and given them a little bit more chutzpah, as we used to say, growing up in the Jewish faith, to kind of get out there. And I believe that he's given them cover, these GOP senators, to a degree. And plus, Trump is channeling an angry electorate. And so you put the angry electorate with an angry president who's frustrated, and you're going to get more backbone by these Republicans. I don't think the Democrats were counting on that.
That's right, and I would also add just the evangelical community in particular and the Catholic community turned out in overwhelming numbers for President Trump. Right. That was because of the Supreme Court. That is because Neil Gorsuch, because they wanted someone in the mold of Neil Gorsuch to take that spot, to take this Scalia's seat, and that those same motivating factors for those communities are at play here. So if Democrats didn't learn in 2016 what motivates evangelical and Catholic voters is the Supreme Court, it appears they didn't learn that lesson because it's going to motivate them in 2018.
Yeah. Kaylee McEnany, David Brody, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.